Hello, 7th grade. It is Monday, May the 3rd, and today we're starting chapter 15. The title of the chapter is called Transport. The title of section 15A is Breathing. So how does breathing keep me alive? Well, we have a need for air, and to stay alive, your body is constantly transporting material from place to place. Now, these materials include blood and air, and we don't normally think so much about breathing since it doesn't require any conscious effort. It just happens because our body knows to do it. So, the need for air. The respiratory system delivers oxygen to your blood while removing carbon dioxide. I want to bring out that the air that you exhale, meaning that you breathe out, contains that carbon dioxide produced during a cellular respiration. Now, so the respiratory system's job is to keep up a fresh supply of oxygen for a body. And again, a person breathes faster because of a need to get rid of more carbon dioxide. Oops. Okay, the respiratory system. Now, we're going to talk about that, and I've got a little picture here. It doesn't match exactly what we're talking about, but if you'll look with me on page 306 as we talk through this as well. So, take a deep breath and read on as we examine the structures that air passes through on its way that as it delivering its load of oxygen to your body. Now, number one, nasal cavity, which is right here. This is your nasal cavity because you breathe in, and so that air enters into your nose, which is your nasal cavity, warms and moistens it. Otherwise, your respiratory system could easily dry out. So you've got to have some moisture in there. Okay, so warms and moistures. And then you have, number two, you have the pharynx. So as air enters the pharynx, which converts it actually does connecting the passages of your nose and mouth to the passageway that leads down to the esophagus, okay? And then you have number three, the larynx, which keeps food from entering your trachea, which you see here, the trachea is this pipe here. It also contains your vocal cords. The multi-purpose larynx, know that it is a muscle and cartilage and has several important jobs. Of course, it helps the food from entering into your trachea, and it enables you to speak because of your vocal cords. Now, air leaves your larynx and it passes through the trachea or the windpipe, which we just saw. And then the trachea branches into two bronchi, one leading to each lung. And if you look on page 307, you can see a great picture of that as well. And you have two lungs are made of spongy tissue. And each lung contains millions of tiny sacs called alveoli, where gas exchange takes place. So you have the walls of the alveoli and blood vessels are very, very thin, allowing gas to easily diffuse between the two. So the respiratory system works with several other systems to deliver oxygen to the cells. We know from learning that there is no organ in the body that can do its job alone. They all work together. And your respiratory system works with several other systems to fulfill its mission because there's muscles involved, muscles that pumps air in and out of your lungs, and your lungs even play a role in the excretion system of your body of removing waste and carbon dioxide. So breathing. Now, we're on page 308. Breathing. Breathing is the process of inhaling and exhaling air. So the air is not actually moved by the lungs, but actually the muscles surrounding the lungs helps that take place. So you inhale by making your chest cavity larger. Okay? This works like sipping a beverage through a straw. Now, as you start to breathe, your lungs have a certain resting volume. Speaking of this right here. Now, to increase this volume, you make your chest larger by contracting your diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped muscle located beneath your lungs. I think we've looked at that as well. This increases the volume of your lungs, and air begins to rush in. So you exhale by making your chest smaller. Perhaps you're tempted to think that your diaphragm pushes upward to force the air out, but it really doesn't actually. So your diaphragm and rib muscles, they just simply relax. And as they do, your chest returns to its resting volume, forcing air out. Go back here. So you're resting. When a person's resting, a person usually inhales and exhales about half a liter of air with each breath. Now, since air enters the respiratory system through the nasal cavity, how do you breathe when your nose is stopped up? Think about that. Well, actually, air enters through the mouth. So when your nose is stopped up, it will enter in through the mouth, which mouth also connects to the pharynx, okay? So, I'm just ignore the screen. I'm just talking through some questions here. So what would happen if thick mucus filled the alveoli? Well, that oxygen, carbon dioxide would not diffuse between the lungs and the bloodstream. You know, if you look with me on page 309 and you look at the bottom of the page, there are some individuals, and maybe some of you, that struggle with asthma. Okay? Asthma is a common illness that occurs when a person's lungs have become inflamed, and often is it's response to particles in the air, maybe even such as pollen, allergies, and things like that. During an asthma attack, a person suffers bouts of coughing and wheezing, very like shortness of breath, like they're having a hard time breathing. And so a current theory is that storms break pollen grains, especially ryegrass, into hundreds of smaller particles that can be inhaled deep into a person's lung. And many of the thunderstorm asthma victims have never had an asthma attack before, but they did have a history of hay fever and allergic pollen. And then then as allergies suffer who live near grasslands at risk due to thunderstorm asthma. Something to look up and think about, okay? Just a interesting fact here. About 1 in 13 people, that's 1 out of 13 individuals in the United States have the condition of asthma. Okay, so what is the main organ of the respiratory system? And that is the lungs. Okay, just ignore on the screen. This doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking to you about right now. Now, where in a lung does the gas exchange actually take place? And that's from page 207, alveoli. Now, what muscle is most responsible for the moving of the air in and out of the lungs? And that is the diaphragm. Okay, now that ends today's video. And you are going to make sure that you took notes, highlighted all bold words, and complete the terms for 15A. Have a great day.